I was so focused on just sports and athletics, as you should be, but I thought that I kind of had to sacrifice romance. I kind of had to sacrifice a love life. I had always put football first, before my own well-being, before my relationships. So it was really a mirror of how I had taught everyone in my life to see me. For so long, being in the closet and holding the secret and harboring it, a lot of that time I felt like I was drowning. I felt underwater. Coming out was the first time where I felt like I could come up for a breath of fresh air.
When you come to the moment of coming out and realizing that your own happiness, your own self-worth and self-love matters, on top of it, having a platform where representation and visibility matters, it kind of becomes the only option and, of course, the best option.
And the whole basis of being an athlete is to strive to overcome obstacles and hopefully to be a champion one day. I think it's natural that goes to the causes that we feel passionate about and also the communities that have supported us in getting there.
I want you to see the human in this story. I want you to see that though I embody all of these identities and all this intersectionality, I am a person moving through life that has experienced, mental wellness struggles, grief, loss, triumph, joy, love, heartbreak. And I want you to understand that though we are seen so different, we are really all the same.
There's a young player out there, someone's son, brother, or nephew, gasping for air, begging to be seen. I see you, and I'm with you.
Is it still morning?
It is.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan Capehart, host of the Saturday Show and the Sunday Show with Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC. Thank you. Y'all are so nice. Welcome to our NBCU News Group panel, It's Personal, Life Beyond the Headlines. For the next 90 minutes, you're going to hear from an amazing lineup of guests. First up, a one-on-one conversation with former professional football player R.K. Russell, the NFL's first out bisexual player. Then a briefing on the state of LGBTQ plus America with four great panelists from the media and advocacy world who will also share how they adapt and thrive during these challenging times for the community. But we begin with this man next to me, R.K. Russell. So RK is the former defensive end in the NFL, is also a social justice advocate, published poet, we're going to talk about that in a minute, essayist, and artist. In August of 2019, Russell made history by becoming the first out active NFL player to identify as bisexual. When he came out, no other athletes in the four men's professional sports leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, were out bisexual or gay. Now, in his powerful memoir, The Yards Between Us, RK shares his story and explores his love of football, men and women, the devastating tightrope of keeping his sexuality a secret, the tension between his private life and public life, and the importance of crashing through barriers. RK, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with your coming out story. In the ESPN story that published when you came out in 2019, you talked about a blogger threatening to out you as being in a same-sex relationship. At the time, you were not out. The blogger didn't out you. But here's what you said about that situation. After hearing me out, know what that blogger told me? That he would grant me this favor, but that I should be more careful. Let that sink into your brain. Even though openly LGBTQ people are thriving in every area of public life, politics, entertainment, the top corporations in America, they are so invisible in pro sports that a gossip blogger is doing a favor for a bisexual football player by not disclosing that he happens to date men. Nobody should need a favor to live honestly. In nobody's worlds should being careful mean not being yourself. The career you choose shouldn't dictate the parts of yourself that you embrace. Talk about why it was important for you to come out so publicly to ESPN and to the rest of the sporting world.
For me, coming out and being public and being as visible as I can be, one, is a privilege that I am afforded. There are people who come out and they aren't celebrated. They aren't in ESPN. They don't get to come and do talks like these. There are people who get kicked out of their homes, who lose their jobs, and who encounter violence every day just for living as who they are. So that being a first priority of mine, using this privilege and this platform and my voice to make life better for people like that and to encourage other people who were more where I was, which was living in the closet and in fear and in hiding and in shrouded in shame. And hopefully, if not encouraging them to come out, just encouraging them to start loving themselves, to start a journey of self-love that goes beyond closed doors or private conversations or secret relationships, or that goes against what maybe they were taught or how they were brought up. It's the reason I continue to do talks like these, because it's important to see faces, I think, and to see people and hear our stories. It's easy when it's a headline, it's easy when it's a topic, it's easy when a blogger doesn't know me to see me as an opportunity to get a lot of hits on his website. But when you come and you see me, when you read my book, when you interact with people who aren't like you, or who are like you, you get to kind of humanize these things that have become bullet points, that have become hot spots, that have become these arguments or these political agendas. There's nothing political about me being who I am, loving who I love, and also wanting to play professional football and wanting to be active in male professional sports. There's nothing political about that. That is just something innately human in me. And I think people need to see that we need to connect with each other in order to see each other's light and to understand each other better.
But it took you a long time
Yeah.
to get to this point, to be able to so beautifully explain why it's important you're out now than it was when you write about the time, early on in your book, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But I would love to know the reaction of your teammates and the NFL to your coming out.
I got so much love and support in terms of the sporting world, in terms of teammates. It wasn't just professional teammates that reached out to me, that texted me, that called me and told me that they respected me or they were proud of me or they just were happy that I was happy. I'm talking about every teammate in every level of my career, my college teammates, my high school coaches and teammates, people, peers who I maybe didn't play with, maybe I played against, maybe just we were familiar with each other because of our football bonds and because of sport. The outpour of support that I got far outweighed any of the negative, especially from the people who knew me personally. I'm sure there was backlash. I'm sure there were people in the sporting world that felt differently, but I didn't. I wasn't affected, or it couldn't touch me because I was so surrounded in love, because I was shrouded in an armor of acceptance and love and gratitude from the people that I knew and the people that knew my soul, regardless of the identities that I embody, that the hate and the negativity couldn't pierce that armor.
You write at the beginning of the book about you and your partner waiting, getting up hours early Pacific time, waiting for the ESPN piece to hit and the accompanying video to hit. And you make a point of saying that once it did, your phone blew up. Your phone had not changed since you were in middle school, so you were hearing from all sorts of people. But what I noticed is that you took note of all the people you heard from, and then those you didn't.
Yeah.
Who describe that group of people you didn't hear from?
Yeah, I think the people that stood out most were family members that had known me for a long time that didn't reach out or felt. I can only imagine what they felt. Some of them I still haven't talked to, but the family members, and then of course the people that I was in relationships with, exes, who that can always be kind of a tricky road depending on how you left the situation. But I was a really good boyfriend to a lot of you. You're not happy for me? But no, I think it's mostly it's family, because those are the people where regardless, a friend can be a friend one day and not be a friend the next day. A lover can be one day and be a stranger next. But family, is always in some way family. And I think at that time, it hit me differently. I internalized still. I think now, and moving forward, I looked at it as, okay, well, they just have more growth to do in their journey. They just have more to walk in their journey of understanding not just who I am, but who they are and how they want to show up in people's lives, what family means to them and how they represent that in the way that they treat other people. And that's on them, that's not on me.
In terms of the people you did or did not hear from, and I'm not going to give too much away, but did you, when you read the book, remember this name? Did you hear from Alan?
Yes, actually.
Oh, Alan
Yes.
was this guy he dated, mm-hmm. and it's intense.
I dated him. I don't know if he was dating me.
And so you did hear from him.
I did hear from him.
What did he have the nerve to say?
Well, for those of you who don't know, Alan was someone who did me wrong. He was my first boyfriend.
I'm trying not to give a
give a little bit. But it ended badly. Let me just say that. It ended very badly. But this person reached out to me and congratulated me and was very happy and excited for me. And, kind of threw what happened on us in the past on me in the way of saying, now that you're out, we could.
Oh,
it
hell
would probably
no.
work.
Oh, no. No.
No, that was my reaction too. Don't worry.
Okay, good. All right. So I want you to know that I just went down a rabbit hole there. I wasn't supposed to go there, but I went there because it was fun. So you've described yourself as being very private, but that's not the case in your memoir, The Yards Between Us. You write about depression, drinking, relationships. You are so open and honest and intimate in your writing. Was it hard to be so vulnerable after being so intensely private for so long?
Definitely. I think vulnerability still to this day is something that that challenges me, that I'm afraid of a lot of the times, that makes me feel both powerful and both vulnerable. And it's an intimate relationship. And I think intimacy is something that for a long time in my life I ran away from, I shied away from. I kept people at arm's distance, even in relationships. Even if you are family or teammates, and letting people know you, truly know you, is terrifying for me, because that means if you know me and you see me and you still don't love me, or you still don't appreciate me, or you reject me in a way, then there's nothing else I have. Like, this is it. When I'm wearing a mask, when I'm R.K. Russell, the football player, or the writer, or the this or that, if you don't like that, I'm like, okay, I have other masks. Which one do you want? But when you're vulnerable and it's all of you, and you don't feel accepted, there's a loneliness, I think, that I feel. Back when I was a little boy and my mom was working 3 jobs and my stepfather had just passed and it was just me in that room, I feel like I'm back in that room. But then today, I look and I see the people that I have connected with by being vulnerable. I see my partner of 4 years. I see my mom, who is my best friend and who we talk every day for at least an hour on the phone. I see the friends that I have and the mentors that I have, and I realize that I'll never be in that room again. I'll be that little boy again. He pops up every once in a while and has a tantrum and I have to calm him down. But I'll never be that alone again. And I think that is something that coming out gave to me and that I gave to myself.
Let's talk, you mentioned your mother. Let's talk about your mother.
Thank you.
Your mother, Miss Martha, as you said, you talk to your mom every day for an hour?
Except on the weekend. She got weekends off.
Oh, okay. I mean, I got to be real careful when I call my mom. If I call during Jeopardy, it's just, or the U.S. Open, she gets that little tight face, like, I want off the phone. So in writing about your mother, I'm curious about this. You have your childhood memories that you had before writing of you and your mom. But did your memories change, or your recollection change, or your analyzing of those moments change in the writing of the book? Did you, in short, did you start to view your mother and your relationship with your mother through adult eyes as a result of writing this book?
Definitely. I think while writing it, when I'm really detailing moments, it's very much my POV. It's very much how I felt. It's a transportation to little RK in the emotions he was feeling, in the ways he was trying to process the world. But I think as I get further in the book and I aged not just in real life, but in the book, I start to see my mom as the human being, the woman who at 20 had a little boy and did the best that she could to raise him in a world that was going to oppress him or attack him or look at him a certain type of way just because of who he was and how he looked. So, you know, it's kind of a dual view. It kind of reminds me a bit of parenthood in a way, because I'm talk to my mother, like I said, all the time, and she says, you know, to look at your child and to see the 6-year-old him and the 15-year-old him and the adult him all in this layered expression can be very overwhelming. And I started to try to get that view of my mom as well. But, you know, I wanted to be true to my experiences. Though we talk every day, I did not talk about the book because I was like, I don't need you telling me what happened. And then I put that on the page. You know, I tell my mom, write your book, you write yours, I'm gonna write mine. But yeah, it's hard not to. You know, she is human.
What did she think? Has she read the book?
She has.
Did she read it before it came out in print?
Okay, so I sent it to her.
Well, what happened was, okay, you sent it to her.
I sent it to her.
Did she?
She read the first half, and then she was like, I'm good. So then we started doing press week. My mom came on the tour with me, and things were coming up that she hadn't got to yet. And you know, she's in the green room like, I don't know if I said that way, but it was a healing journey for us as well, because I detailed things in the book that she didn't remember, specifically about me coming out and her reaction to that. And at first she did deny it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, you know, this is how I remember it. This is my truth. You have to go through your own process, your own journey, like I talk about. And she was in the hotel room one night, and she woke up. She said she woke up in the middle of the night. I know because I got 20 text messages. I go over to her hotel room at like 4 a.m. and she's just inconsolable. And she admitted to me, she was like, I did say that. She was like, I didn't remember it. It just came to me in like a dream. She's like, I did say that. I'm very sorry. I wanted to be, you know, that person for you that just told you they loved you regardless. And I was like, you were. You know, it might have took a little bit to get there, but you're here now and we're here now and we move forward. So long story short, she just finished the book like a week ago. And she is very excited to write her book.
Oh, okay. All right, the rebuttal. RK's mom. Now let's talk about somebody else who is very dear to you, very close to you. Your best friend, your college football teammate, Joseph Gilliam, who died in 2018. You write about this in the book, and there's a great moment in the book where you come out to him. You're both sitting on the couch, staring straight ahead, playing Madden. Stop giggling, because take us there. How did it even come up?
Oh my gosh, I think it was an accumulation of things. I had just met a girl that at that time I was just getting to know, but she would become my girlfriend, and I was in college and so far away from home that I left the idea of who I was in Texas and began to kind of try to discover who I actually was there at Purdue University. My sexuality had come up in my own mind multiple times. At that point, I had either flirted or had relations with people of the same sex, and NFL scouts were coming to practices to see me play, to see me perform. The dream of me being an NFL player was becoming more and more real, and I just didn't know where else to go. And he was always the person that was there for me, whether I knew where to go, whether I didn't. Joe had helped me in every area of my life. And if I was going to talk to anyone about it, I knew it was going to be him. So as you depicted, we're sitting there, not looking at each other at all, playing Madden. I'm probably losing. And you know, I started in kind of like this third person, like, what if you had a teammate, and what if he was this and what if he was that? And you know, the responses that I got from him, I'll never forget, of just him basically saying, you know, I don't care. Like, as long as he's a good person, as long as he's a good teammate, as long as he, you know, does things the right way or with morals and integrity, then it doesn't matter. And then I said, well, what if he was your best friend? To which Joe replied the same thing, then we're best friends and it doesn't matter. So, thank you. For my first experience telling someone, even like that there was a question mark, because also I didn't know. Like, bisexuality in my mind was not even like a landing spot. I was under the impression that I was like turning gay. And I could like stop that. I could like reverse it, which, you know, it's not true. But I didn't know where to go. And he was just always the rock in every other area of my life. And he assumed to be the rock in this, but not just that, in the bridge, because he was a black man, he was a football player, he grew up in the church, his dad was a pastor in the church, you know, he was kind of all of these things I had been told before would reject me, and he didn't.
We have just a couple minutes left before we throw the questions open to the audience. I just want to tell everybody we're going to do Q&A, emphasis on questions, no speeches. If you launch into a speech, I don't mean to be rude, but I'll interrupt you, I'll stop you, and I'll be rude doing it. So you're forewarned. You are forewarned. But one more question before we do that. Last week, Carl Nassib, the first out gay NFL player, announced his retirement. And so now it looks like there's no other out LGBTQ plus player in the NFL. What do you think are some of the structural issues or reasons that's causing players to remain silent? That's assuming that there are other closeted NFL players.
Yeah, which there are.
You want to put a number on it?
I mean, what are the numbers? Like what? One in four, right? Like, is that
Okay.
like the general?
That's a general rule, but in the NFL?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, go on.
Yeah, I think the NFL, I think the ideology and kind of the perspective of it is a little backwards, and I think that can only happen because, well, I think that's obviously happening because there are also not LGBTQ plus people in positions of power making the decisions for the NFL in these executive positions, in the ownership positions, in head coaching positions, to kind of give the different perspective and POV. To be a straight person, to be an ally is an amazing thing, but to be an ally is what that is. You know, you're not the center of this conversation or this topic. And, you know, the NFL has been, in recent years, so much more accepting and inclusive, and, you know, the marketing and the social media and the branding is very pretty, and it's very welcoming for them, but at the same time, to me, it's very reactive. I'm I'm very over the idea that we need an athlete to come out for us to then be accepting. It's like, you know, once you come out, you'll see how inclusive we are, and you'll see, but that's not what inclusion is. Inclusion is inviting us to the table at all times. It's not giving us a seat when one of us speaks up. And the NFL is also very obsessed with its branding, essentially, and its face market value. And, you know, it's been thought in players' minds as well as, like, it needs to be a Tom Brady that comes out. Like, there are guys that are struggling week to week to make the team, that are on practice squad, not being able to really make ends meet in terms of just the lifestyle of an athlete, how much we have to feed ourselves and train and put back into our body. And to come out and to risk that when you're already kind of on the fringe in any sense is terrifying. So there's an idea that we need a player to come out for us to be inclusive. There's an idea that player needs to be extraordinary to make a change. And it's a way to not take ownership. It's a way to defer the power to the people who are in fact the most oppressed by this system, in putting the onus on them. You know, there's a quote, I'm not sure where it's from, but it's like, I should not have to destroy the systems that I didn't build. And that, I think, is what the NFL is expecting these closeted athletes to do. But that is why I'm here. That's why I continually talk to them and collaborate with them and try to share with them. Also try to get more people in that building that are LGBTQ+ in all spheres, because to be an institution that truly believes in diversity and inclusion and equality, then it needs to be represented in your staff. It needs to be represented in your building. It needs to be the founding blocks of your foundation. And if it's not that, if everyone in your building is straight and white, then you're always going to miss the mark because you're not starting at home.
Okay, with that, we're going to Whoa, that was fast. Okay, where are the mic runners? There.
Oh.
Okay, we've got right here, second row. And then nope, she's not gonna let you have the mic. Okay.
Hi, Jake Borowski from JP Morgan Chase. Yesterday we just did a session on the Buy Men's experience, and I just wanted to thank you first and foremost for your bravery, for standing up, speaking out. I actually had a link to your interview in the Cheddar website, so it's in our resources. So like, I'm fanboying a little bit right now.
Thank you.
So thanks for being
Question.
Yes, question. So one of the things we talked about was like masculinity and how we felt growing up that like our sexuality invalidated our masculinity, and looking at role models like Michael Jordan and like, you know, less related, but like the Marlboro Man, you know, like that being the example of being a real man, and how like, you know, finding your sexuality, you really had to battle with that a lot. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. I think masculinity is something that plagues all of us, specifically men, but really everyone in society, because it opens us up to things like patriarchy. It opens us up to things like misogyny. It opens us up to dehumanizing people, because that's really what the idea of the real man is. The real man is in fact not real at all. The real man is a robot. He has no emotions. He has no vulnerability or no connections, yet he is always strong. He is always providing. He is always this larger than life character, because he is a character. And when we constantly tell our children to strive to be something that is unobtainable, we constantly tell them that they are not good enough, and that they as they are wrong and not right. And it bleeds over into sexuality, but it bleeds over into so many other parts of our life. And I get a little emotional talking about it, because obviously I know people, and I've been a person who has been and constantly trying to deconstruct that idea and reteach and relearn myself. But at the end of the day, we need to stop telling people who they should be, whether it be because of their gender or their color or their race or anything, and start accepting people for who they are, and start listening to people when they tell their stories and when they share and when they show up bold enough and courageous enough to be their full, true, and authentic self. We need to love them and accept them and let them know that they aren't alone.
Okay. The second hand that flew up right there, and we're going to go to you and then to you after.
Yeah, so I'm also fanboying a little because I'm an NFL fan, but my question is more, I know someone, Ezra Cleveland, from my home state, Minnesota, and he was one of the retired NFL players and shared a little bit about the experience. So I'm curious, as someone who's still active in the league, what do you think is the most impactful way that you can affect change with either the Players Association, the league itself, the structure, to make it safer for these young athletes coming up through college right now? Because we're getting more loud, we're getting more vibrant, and we want to grow that so that, you know, young men, young women, young NBs have these athletes to look up to as, you know, paving the way, yes, but creating those guardrails for safe spaces. What do you think would be the most impactful way to do that as someone who's still active in the league?
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think impact is something that is constantly, that I think we all as a society look at reach instead of consistency, that we kind of prioritize the big splashes over the fundamental changes and the institutional changes and in the constant working. Because as an athlete, I know that nothing comes overnight. I know that I won't show up at that gym and be able to bench 400 pounds if I haven't been building up to that. And I think impact is the same thing. It's great to have a broad outreach. To do a 10-second video on the NFL network that will reach millions of people is great, but at the end of the day, it is a 10-second video. And though you might reach a lot of people, is that truly an impact? I think as an athlete specifically, it's about always sharing my perspective, always sharing my POV, always being an available resource to those like me and unlike me. I think it's about challenging things. I'm so tired of hearing in the 100+ years of the NFL, things are like this because they've been like this. I'm like, that's not a reason to me that you're then just trying to silence me. You're really not trying to have the conversation. So I think it's about constantly challenging things that for a long time everyone has accepted. Straight, gay, bisexual, everyone. We've all kind of been participants, whether it was unwitting
unwillingly or willingly. So I think it's about challenging those things. It's about finding the little ways to really make a change and being consistent in them. And once again, I have to emphasize having LGBTQ plus voices in the building, making decisions in roles of power, on the field, off the field, everywhere. I think it's very important.
Before we go to this question here, the questions have been very sort of over here centric. So if there are questions over here, I need to see some hands. Okay, I see you there and I see that hand. I see your hand too. But your question over here, thanks.
Hi, oh, that's loud. My name is Rachel. I own Outpost.com. It's an LGBT Florida travel blog. So I'm in the South right now. First, as a very feminine, bisexual woman who can mainstream in any way I want to, I commend your vulnerability. I know that's not the cue, but I had to at least say it. How do you feel do you have concerns when you travel to the southern states? I mean, obviously the South is a big thing right now with some of the laws changing, and as an LGBT travel blogger that promotes coming to Florida, obviously that's a challenge right now, but I'm curious to know how you feel when you're in those spaces and in those stadiums. It might be very different than playing like in a Philadelphia or DC area.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I will say, for right or for wrong, that there's a baseline of uncomfortability that I feel regardless of where I am. Being a bisexual man, but really being a Black man in America, I constantly feel a certain level of discomfort. Being in southern places, southern states, being in predominantly white spaces, being in predominantly straight spaces. I think that's the reason I clung to my masculinity and my football and athletic prowess so long, because for a long time it was the key to get me into a lot of these places and to make me feel like I belonged and to make me feel appreciated because other people appreciated these things. I also know that I speak with privilege, that I am a large masculine looking guy, that when I walk in a room, people don't automatically assume I'm bisexual. People don't automatically come at me with LGBTQ plus type of hate, bigotry, rhetoric because of how I look and how I act. But for me, going to these places is something, like I said, if I have the privilege and the opportunity to do, then I'm called to do it, because there's a little boy out there who might not feel like he can go to these places, who might not feel welcomed, who isn't welcomed. And I need to be there, one, because when he gets there, I need to welcome him. And two, if he's not being invited, I need to make sure that everyone is getting these invites, that if there is something, especially like sport, that I believe should be used to bring people together and to uplift people and to be a family and a community, something that LGBTQ plus youth at this time need the most, I need to be there to welcome them in. So, there's a constant level of discomfort, but I think the benefits far outweigh the costs, especially to me in such like a privileged state. That's what the swivel's for.
You can swivel that way. Question there, and keep your hand up, lady or person. I can just see. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jack from Deloitte, and over the last year, we've seen some of the big professional leagues like the NHL refuse to do Pride nights, have players straight out say they're not going to wear the jerseys, they're not going to participate, it's offensive to them. We've seen the MLB come out and say, oh, we have a Pride night, and then immediately turn around and have a family values night, and the reaction to the right wing and conservative values. And with these large leagues almost turning away from what we thought was progress, how do you see a path forward for young athletes where you've got high schoolers in a locker room being called gay and being called faggot and being made fun of and basically told you can't be a professional athlete, and hey, the NHL and the MLB and professional basketball players are out here saying that same stuff. And what do you tell those young athletes of, yeah, it's still very hostile, and what we thought was heading in the right direction seems to have made a U-turn.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Unfortunately, change never happens as fast as we want it to. Unfortunately, progress is never linear. And I do believe that a pushback, especially of that scale, whether it be players or an organization, is in direct relation to the progress that we are making. I think it is
a scared and feeble last-ditch attempt to silence a group that will no longer be silenced and that is louder than we've ever been. For the young players, I will say that you will face multiple obstacles for multiple reasons of people and things and situations that tell you that you can't. Unfortunately, we are all in a world where people are more willing to say you can't do something than to believe in you and support you. The beauty of being an athlete is that you constantly beat the odds, that you constantly overcome opposition, whether it be a true opponent or whether it be ideology or whether it be hate or whether it be ignorance. Unfortunately, that is a weight that we carry as LGBTQ plus people and as athletes. I'll let them know that you are not alone as it may seem, that whether you are or are not LGBTQ plus, that your athletic career depends solely on your ability to perform, your dedication to the sport, your love for the sport, and how you treat the people who help you get there, how you treat your teammates and how you treat others, regardless of the outside world, that your journey in sports is yours. If you do not want to bear that weight, that's completely fair. The world is changing, and I will make sure that we continue to change it so that more people feel comfortable enough to be an athlete and to be themselves, out and open and proud.
And question here.
Hi, my name is Amanda Peterson. I'm here with Deloitte Consulting. It was mentioned previously that your best friend was a PK. And as a Black queer woman raised in the South, I know what that means. And so I'm curious, as a Black queer person raised in the South, shrouded by faith and what that means, especially in Texas, how has your queerness or your sexuality kind of intersected with your faith, or how has your queerness / your sexuality impacted your journey with faith?
Yeah.
Fabulous question.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. For me, I think, unfortunately, a long time in my journey, my sexuality wasn't something that I let impact anything by my own choice, that it seeped into things, regardless of how much I was trying to compartmentalize it and put it away. And faith is one of those things. I think with the catalyst of losing my best friend, someone who was so strong in faith and someone who I was so close to, did divert me away from religion. There were multiple things too, going into spaces that preach or that talked about being welcoming and being loving, and everyone can come and not feeling that in my heart. So there was a time where I did have to kind of step away, especially from organized religion. And I thought at the time I was stepping away from my spirituality, but really I was stepping into a spirituality that fit me, an intimate relationship that was more about me and my creator and the nature and the forces of the world that I felt impacts me. It was being about stepping away from an institution and stepping into an intimacy and a connection with people and with love and with this shared energy that I do believe that we all have. It all comes down to kind of the same things of unlearning the things that I was told as a young person, that to be a person that walks in faith, you had to go to church every week, that you had to, you had to repent, that you had to do these things, that you had to be this very specific type of person. And then all of the forgiveness and the love and all the things would be given to you. It was about unlearning that, and I had to kind of step back from it. I would say now, I wouldn't call myself spiritual, but I definitely feel more religious. I also feel like I'm living with so much more purpose now, which I never felt before. I always felt like I was looking for something, searching for something in religious spaces, in church, in these spaces. And I feel like now I found it. I feel like I own it. I feel like being here and speaking to you all is where I'm meant to be. It just, everything to me is so much more grounded, and that starts with my connection to the universe, that starts with love. I do believe that I am blessed. I do believe that I am favored. I do believe that I am protected. And I'm not sure exactly what that force is. I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but I know that it moves and it works in my life, and I feel it more closely now being an out bisexual man than I ever felt trying to be a closeted Christian or religious person or anything like that.
In the 5 seconds we have left, okay, final question for you. We're going to go just a little bit over. You are a former professional football player, a poet. We didn't even get to that. We'll have to save that for another conversation. You're a writer. 10 years from now, when I'm interviewing you, Who will R.K. Russell be then?
Oh gosh, a father. Yeah. And it's weird, it might not seem connected, but for me, I never saw a future that ended in a family. I never saw a future that went past football because I didn't allow myself to believe and to hope that I was, that outside of football that I would be worthy of that type of love and that type of life and acceptance and appreciation. And now not only walking through it and experiencing it, but believing it is the gift that I wish that I could give everyone. And to feel, regardless of how crazy this world can be, and regardless of how much I know having a child, and specifically a Black child in an LGBTQ plus household or family, how challenging that can be, I know that it too is my calling. I know that it too is my purpose. I know that to bring a light into this world that will shine beyond my own comprehension is something that my soul is calling to do, is amazing. 3, 4, 5 years ago, I never would have thought that I'd be sitting up here talking about having a family. But now it seems undeniable to me. So in 10 years, yeah, I'll have the little raptor running around.
Well, this much, we just met, and for a lot of people, they've just met you maybe for the first time, but I think we are all in agreement that, that's gonna be a lucky child. R.K. Russell, you're truly an inspiration and a reason for hope in these troubled times. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I also want to say, if you want to buy the yards between us, use this QR code that you see there on the screen, and you'll get 10% off. Again, R.K. Russell, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, don't go anywhere. I forgot. I have more to read. It is an honor to be here and to be with all of you today, and to be representing NBCU News. NBCU. I'm so not used to the U part yet. NBCU News Group, the #1 news network in America. And if you don't believe me, watch this. A look at some of the stories we've covered over the past year on the networks of NBC Universal.
Thanks, Stuart Home, for joining us this hour. We're going to start tonight with some breaking news.
There is breaking news.
Breaking news overnight.
We have breaking news tonight.
We've got some breaking news to get to.
Russia has just launched one of its largest barrage of missile and drone attacks in weeks.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed 4 bills that took aim at the transgender community, drag performances, and discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom.
Here on NBC News Daily, we start this Friday at the White House.
Right now, President Biden talking about the historic collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
This is a former president who's in the middle of being prosecuted under the Espionage Act.
Police are trying to block off streets to try and corral the crowd, but you can already see dumpster fires already happening.
He's saying that the incoming is getting a little too close and thinks we should go inside.
When residents here say they're lucky to be alive, they're not exaggerating. It's a miracle anyone survived this tornado.
481 tornado reports across 25 states.
Thankfully, the waters have receded, the sun is out, but this is what people are left with.
There have been 13 school shootings this year. That's 1 per week. It almost makes you think that it is acceptable on some level.
In Montana, lawmakers have voted to ban the state's first transgender legislator.
Congressman, did you take campaign donations and use that money to buy expensive suits?
No, I did not. I can tell you this is the Iowa poll that everyone in politics has been waiting for.
This is not the circumstances in which I expected to be talking to you.
Nor me, Rachel. It's always good to talk to you.
You warned the country, essentially, that he was going to try to end democracy.
Some of the headlines are downright scary. Is flying safe right now?
President and CEO of McDonald's, Chris Kempczinski, joins us in a CNBC exclusive.
Do you feel like you could have been better protected by the school?
Yes.
He said that you called him the greatest president. If that's true, then why run against him?
This is a president who is running for re-election. What we are effectively seeing are the battle lines being drawn.
The 2024 Republican primary is starting to feel very reminiscent of the 2016 Republican primary.
A rematch that I think, if it does take place, would be very unpopular with voters.
Does Governor DeSantis stand a chance against Donald Trump? As they put it to me, if you want to be the nominee, you need to take down Donald Trump.
Emerging technology that could change the way we live. This is what my voice sounds like when I clone it. That wasn't me.
Why has the U.S. government not invested more in water infrastructure?
Are you trying to send a signal
Of course
that
not.
some types of communities, some types of people aren't welcome here in Tennessee?
Talk to us about the importance of queer visibility, of being out and open.
What does it say about our society today that an openly gay woman can start a business and it can be embraced by all sorts of people?
It's nice, actually.
Does it feel like we're living in two different worlds?
There are people who want progress and to move forward, and there are people who want to either stay where we are or move backward.
How important are programs like this so that people who are blind feel like they live in their community?
What was the message that you wanted to bring to these folks who were still going through the shock and the trauma of what had just happened?
The message that I wanted to bring was purely the hope.
All right, we are back with another great panel. Joining me are Wilson Cruz, chair of the new chair of the board of GLSEN, and also an actor. Lindsay Reiser, MSNBC anchor and correspondent. Jarrett Lucas, executive director of the Stonewall Foundation. And Brooke Sopelsa, NBC Out editorial director. Thank you all very much for being here. Brooke, I'm going to start with you. Yes, let's give them a round of applause. I'm sorry to walk all over that. So Brooke, I'm going to start with you and have you level set for us. Simple question. What's the state of LGBTQ rights in America right now?
A very easy question. Thank you. So I'm aware that there are a lot of scary headlines when it comes to the LGBTQ community, partly because I've written many of them. But we can look at the top line issues. We've got approximately 500 anti-LGBTQ bills that were proposed in state legislatures this year alone. More than 80 of them became law, but more than 200 were defeated. We've also seen headlines about book bans, about drag protests. But that's looking at the trees, right? When you look at the forest, we're more visible and we have more rights than we ever did before at any time period. And many of these state bills, many of these book bans, they're a backlash to how much we've actually, moved forward in terms of equality, in terms of visibility. I think of the Parental Rights in Education Act, or the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in this state. 20 plus years ago when I was in school, we would never have needed something like that because you would never have had a teacher in grammar school or high school even infuse LGBTQ issues into instruction. So many of these measures are a backlash to how far we've come. And even book bans. I am floored by the number of LGBTQ books that we see now. I think New York Times had an article about, I think it was a 740% increase in LGBTQ fiction from 2016 to 2021. So, while the trees can look scary, and there are a lot of scary headlines, and we should be paying attention to those, I think the bigger picture, when we zoom out, is more uplifting.
And so, Lindsay, in the stories you've covered as a correspondent and an anchor, how important is it to you to cover LGBTQ issues, to cover the trees, as it were?
Well, I've been general assignment my entire career, from El Paso to Phoenix to now, and so I don't have a beat, but whenever I am pitching, either as a correspondent, the stories that I cover, or as an anchor in the chair and the guests that we book, LGBTQ plus issues are civil rights issues, and any potential retraction of those rights could impact any other vulnerable community. And so it is important for me to shine a light on that, to be, to have people who can be mouthpieces for that. At the same time, I'm not a prospective journalist. I am, I do tend to be neutral and look at all sides, but that doesn't necessarily mean equal weight to all sides.
And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit.
Right, and so taking a 30,000-foot view and saying, is this an erosion of rights? And I have covered, the book bans and interviewed George Johnson, whose book, All Boys Aren't Blue, not only was revoked from reading lists, but libraries, even just the option, interviewing Jim Obergefell ahead of the 303 creative decision, he saw that a conservative court was likely to side with that website designer. And what does that mean? I anchored breaking news coverage when that SCOTUS ruling came out. What does this mean for the right to marry? And so, covering that as a journalist, observing and reporting, but then at the end of the day, it is emotionally exhausting, and having some of those conversations, at home with my wife, and what does this mean for our daughter and the world that she's going to grow up in, and is she not going to be able to talk about her two moms in her classroom, and having those personal conversations at home as well.
And like I said before, we're going to talk a little more in depth, the three journalists here in a moment. Jarrett, as the executive director of the Stonewall Foundation, what are you hearing from the community about the challenges to the community, to the LGBTQ+ community?
Yeah, so a few things to set context for what I'm hearing and why I'm hearing it. First, at Stonewall, we are a responsive philanthropy. We're not one of those foundations that was set up once upon a time and that decided, X, Y, and Z issues are important, and we will, for decades, dangle the carrot, and that's that, right? Like, we actually put our ear to the ground, listen to folks, what they want, what they need. The other thing is our community is a microcosm, and if we are an LGBTQ foundation bias, for us, we need to fund the full breadth of realities and experiences. And then the last piece is that we have a really strategic and principled focus on the folks in our community who are the most marginalized among us. And so that's one, to say I hear every day all the things. And two, where we turn our attention, where we really direct resources, is focused on the greatest vulnerability in many cases. I would say that, if there's sort of a high-level way to describe what I'm hearing, it is, I think, the translation of those headlines into the daily lived experiences of our people, right? And so if it's the stigma that is conjured when people are saying, they're grooming our kids, they're tricking our men, what we see and what we hear is the way that emotional violence gets translated into physical violence, right? When we look at what's happening in the courts and legislatures, the hundreds of pushes to invisibilize us and erase us from public life, what we are seeing and hearing is how, when that's true, when we're like, our lives are private, we see folks don't even have housing, right? Like, you don't want to see this out in your streets, but we don't even have homes to have our private lives, right? And then I would also say, as an example, if you look at the sphere of gender affirming care and all of the pushes to remove access, what we see is people suffering the impact of that, really confused about where they can get affirming care, where they can be safe in doing so, where it's legal. 2 years ago, we launched a program that funds people up to $10,000 gender affirming surgeries and procedures, but we can't just give money. We have to help people find the right geographies and find trustworthy providers, and we have to help them build care plans, and we have to help them connect with nonprofits that can also provide other kinds of support. So it really is about understanding that these things are not theoretical, they're not abstract, they are real, they represent real suffering in folks' lives.
Mm-hmm. And then Wilson, from your vantage point at GLSEN, tell us about the work of GLSEN and how the organization is dealing with anti-LGBTQ bills and laws, particularly those concerning books and classrooms and books in libraries.
First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm so happy to be back at Out and Equal and see all of you. So at GLSEN, we are, because of our own research, well aware of the fact that 82% of students in school right now feel unsafe in their schools. I'm going to say that again. 82% of LGBTQ plus students feel unsafe at their schools. That's unacceptable. And so at GLSEN, we understand that there are ways that we can mitigate that pain and that danger. We fight every day for comprehensive policies that are inclusive of LGBTQ plus students. We understand that having a supportive and visible member of the faculty or educator at that school makes a huge difference in terms of how LGBTQ plus students see themselves and feel welcomed in that environment. We have, in response to the book bans, we've created what's called the Rainbow Library, where we send out books that have been banned in districts in over 5,000 districts across the country, reaching over 5.3 million students at the moment, a program we were looking to expand with corporate partners. We also fight every day for an inclusive curriculum that includes not just LGBTQ plus students, but also includes the true history of everyone in this country. We want to see African American history taught accurately. We need to teach the fight for gender equity in this country. To just piggyback a little bit on what Brooke was saying, I agree with you completely that this moment is a backlash to all of the visibility and the forward movement that we as a community have seen. But the response has been an overkill, right? So it's not just about making things back as they, putting them back where they were. It's about an erasure of an entire community. It's about not allowing LGBTQ plus students to fulfill their potential. So when we're looking at how we fight these anti-LGBTQ laws, we're looking for how we empower students. How do we give them the tools to fight for their own schools, for their own educations? On our website, we have a tool called the GLSEN Navigator. You can go on our website, glisten.org, and go onto the Navigator, click on a state and a community that you live in, and you can see what the state of your school district is, of the anti-LGBTQ laws or supportive laws in your specific state, and how you can help make a difference in your own state. So while they're trying to disempower us, we are trying to empower young people, their parents, and their supportive educators in order to change the reality on the ground.
And so, Brooke and Lindsay, let's dig a little deeper. Let's bring people under the journalistic tent. I mean, we're the three reporters here, but we represent three distinct branches of journalism. And so I want to talk about how our identities come into play while doing our jobs. Lindsay, as you alluded to before, you are the straight news, so to speak, anchor and correspondent. I'm wondering, how do you balance the requirements of impartiality with being an out correspondent and anchor?
I can't separate everything. I go to work and I am who I am, and I can't take out the lesbian out of the Lindsay, and I can't take the journalist out of Lindsay, and I can't. At the same time, though, we have to help people understand what's happening. And so when I was anchoring live coverage of the 303 Creative SCOTUS ruling, there are times when it is tough because I have to come at this from the journalistic point of view, but I can't take the human out of it. But it does help me ask different questions. And it is something that, I can't also not observe and report. That is who I am, and that is what I've always wanted to do. But understanding exactly what's happening doesn't mean, like I've said before, giving equal weight to everything. And we are in a place of privilege where we can, I can decide, let's book this certain guest for the show and let's ask these certain questions. but also asking really hard questions. And that isn't just unique to LGBTQ plus issues. I mean, I just did a long form living wage story, and I got a chance to sit down with a small business owner who was opposed to a wage increase. Why is it that, you know, that's the first thing that has to go is potential employees when you increase wages? And so it's looking at an issue from all sides, but it's also, where's the truth here? And you're giving, what's your motivation? But at the same time, you know, I can't siphon off different parts of my personality, and I think that is why it is so important to have LGBTQ plus people in all areas of work. I shouldn't just be reporting on LGBTQ plus issues. I should be reporting on all issues, and we should be in all areas of society. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to, the responsibility shouldn't be on us to educate people and change the world. Unfortunately, it is, and it is a heavy burden. But what we need to be in all areas of society, and we shouldn't be the only ones shining a light on these issues either. That's why we need allies.
And so Brooke, as editorial director of NBC Out, whose news is geared to the LGBTQ plus community, do you have to worry about that balance, the balance between impartiality and the work that you do?
So one thing I'd like to mention is that NBC Out, while you know our team, all of us are LGBTQ and we're passionate about LGBTQ issues, we really report for the general newsreader. And that's kind of, I think, the beauty of NBC Out, because we're not just preaching to the choir. So I kind of think of our informal motto as by us for everyone. I think the fact that, you know, and my team is right there, always makes me smile to see our merry little crew. But I think we all have special insight into the community that we bring to it. Sometimes it is hard when you are part of the community that you're reporting on. And it's hard to compartmentalize. But then I think people who work across beats may have, you know, we all look at things through a certain lens. And I certainly, you know, look at things through my 6 on the Kinsey scale lesbian lens, you know. But I think it also gives me a special insight to the community. For example, we just did, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but at NBC Out, we did this big multimedia feature on the resurgence of lesbian bars. Now, that's something, if you're not in those circles and you don't hear about, you know, these new queer bars opening up in different, you know, parts of the country, one right here in Florida, actually, you know, because of the insight that we have being part of the community, we were able to be on top of this story. So I think that's kind of our superpower in reporting on these issues. We're really passionate about them. And, you know, we try not to infuse our own personal, you know, political views, but everyone has a lens with which they look at things through.
And so I will speak for the third branch of journalism as a prospective host at MSNBC, as an opinion writer at the Washington Post. My whole job is to infuse my thoughts and beliefs into everything that I write and to what I say from the chair. And so the three of us could go cover the same story. And I'm the only one here who is duty bound to report what happened, but then say either this is BS or that person is a jerk, or this is fantastic and that person is wonderful and should be applauded. And I don't think, and I wanted to have this conversation because sometimes when you are of a community, and I get it doubly, you know, being, you know, a member of the Black community, but also a member of the LGBTQ plus community, that sometimes people feel that because we are of the community, we have a responsibility to them to tell the stories in the way they want them told. And that if we don't do that, then we are not sufficiently loyal. Now, I can take that and say, well, you know what, you have a point. You know, yeah, maybe I should have been a little more supportive, or maybe I shouldn't have been so supportive. But for the two of you, that's just not it does not compute. Like that's not your job. And I'll just leave that. We're gonna move on. Because I can see the two of them are like really kind of uncomfortable, especially Lindsay is like, please move on.
No.
No comment.
So Jared, let me bring you in on this because you've been involved in social justice issues for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how has your identity changed as the community and its priorities have changed?
That is a great question. In some moments, I would say it's about language, right? Putting words to realities. I came out actually at our gala, our annual gala last year as non-binary. And it's something that I understood. Thank y'all. It's something that I've understood about myself forever, right? My first memories of having what I understood sort of expansively as queerness policed was really around gender. It wasn't about sexuality. It wasn't about romance or intimacy or partners, right? And so I think that's one piece of it. The other thing is that I have really embraced the sort of infinite expansiveness of queerness. And I mean that for myself, but also for all of us, right? I think that queerness is often defined in really reductive ways. You know, what's your relationship with the supposed gender binary and gender roles? What's your, sexuality? Who are you romantic or intimate with? That's it. When the reality is, it can encompass the whole self. It can be spiritual, it can be psycho-emotional, it can be professional, recreational, right? And it can be bigger than self. It's communal, it's familial, it's political. And so I think, when I think about my identity growing, evolving, expanding, it's really letting queerness take over.
In Wilson, as everyone knows, there's a strike going on.
There is a strike, yes.
And yet you seem to be taking on more advocacy work. And I bring this up because, as I've mentioned twice now, you've just become the chair of GLSEN. But the last time there was a big strike, you took the year off and worked at the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Why do you take on more advocacy work during times when you're not acting? Like, shouldn't you take some time for yourself?
Yes, sure, that sounds lovely, but we live in revolutionary times, and I am a revolutionary. The world is on fire, I said this earlier, and I'm just picking up one of the hoses. And all hands on deck at this moment. My work at the task force was life-altering, really. I was a field organizer for them. We worked in 5 different municipalities across the country that were trying to remove sexual orientation from the human rights ordinances in their municipality, and we won each and every one of those fights. And it was about organizing. It was about organizing communities, about getting them out to vote, about creating allies in places where we wouldn't necessarily assume we had many. So it really invigorated my passion for electoral politics, but also about how hard we as a community fight for our rights. What inspires me every day, when I get down and when I get overwhelmed, I think about all of the people who fought for me to have the ability to live this life. And then I think about all of the young people who GLSEN helps, who are just trying to do their best to stay alive, to live up to their potential. And what is my job? How can I make their lives easier? That's what wakes me up in the morning. So if I were living in 1963, I would be in bus boycotts. I would be marching, in Washington. I live now, and this is the civil rights movement of our time, and I feel like I have to step up. I also was given a platform at a very young age. I was 19 years old, where I had the national attention on this character that I played in the 1990s. That was the first gay teenager on primetime TV. Thank you. And I also happen to have been the first openly gay man to play an openly gay role on primetime television. And so with that came a platform to kind of illuminate the experience of not just our movement, but of young people. And so my work with GLSEN is really an extension of that work that has been going on for 32 years now. What am I going to do with this platform? How can I use it to help better the lives of young people and of moving our community forward?
All right, we've got less than 5 minutes before we go to Q&A, but I'm going to eat into the Q&A time because I want to ask the other panelists some personal questions. But I'm going to open it up to Q&A, and you've been here since the last Q&A, so the same rules apply. Jarrett, you just returned from a 3-month sabbatical, one that was planned a long time ago and that you delayed for 5 years. Why? And was it difficult to step back from work once you did finally take that sabbatical?
I'm going to fact check you. I didn't delay it. It was delayed. No, I certainly had a hand in those decisions. Part of it was about, most of it came down to circumstance, right? So we have a sabbatical policy. We also have a parental leave policy. And just as my board approved sabbatical 5 years ago, we started dreaming about what it would look like and what we needed in place to make it a smooth experience for everyone. One of my senior staff was like, I'm having a kid. And we were like, that's terrific. And I was happy to help create space for that. And then after that, I had some pretty serious health issues that made sabbatical an afterthought. And then it was 2019, the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. And I was like, I can't take off now. And then the pandemic happened. And so I just finally got around to doing it. It was great. And I will say, when we're talking about my participation in this panel and that question came up, like, what did you do? I admitted to feeling a lot of anxiety around that question. And before sabbatical, what are you going to do? Similarly caused anxiety. And a lot of it, for me, and I recognize it's my stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I get people are asking because of curiosity or care or just courtesy, but I think that I see our culture, our attitudes and behaviors around taking time for ourselves as being part of the problem. And you see this dynamic on a small scale, right? With weekends, right? Somebody says, what did you do over the weekend? If you don't feel that your activity was worth sharing, or you're afraid that it'll be judged, what do you say? You say, oh, nothing. Nothing's not a thing. That's a euphemism when it's directed toward human experience, right? If you're breathing or being still, resting, or just minding your business, those are all things that are worth talking about, right? And so, I hold that and also honor that people genuinely want to know, because it's a rare opportunity I got. Like, how do you use that time? And so did lots of things, but yeah, that's what I'll share.
Well, and you mentioned parental leave. Lindsay, last year you took some time off because you had a baby. Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A year yet?
She's 18 months.
18 months?
Yeah.
That's a year and a half,
I
right?
know.
Is my math right?
Yeah.
A year and a half.
Her 18-month appointment today.
You took a 4-month maternity leave. How are you dealing with the challenges of returning to work and achieving work-life balance with a toddler? Can you even achieve work? Oh, look at the.
I know.
Is it even possible to achieve work-life balance when you get all that cuteness?
Oh my gosh, you're saying no to something at all times. You're either saying no to those faces. She's just now getting to the age where she sees a suitcase and she's starting to cry.
Oh.
And it's heartbreaking. Yeah, and then I swear I come home and she's older, she's learned something new. Or I'm saying no to work, which is a first for me in my career. But I think it's a good thing. I think a priority reset is a good thing. And I also think that we always ask moms about the balance question. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to shift the conversation to all parents. I feel, and I'm guilty of this, I've done this in my career too when I was thinking of starting a family and asking female journalists, how do you do it? And I can see, you know, the discomfort in them answering that, but we should be asking everybody. But you know, you do it, and I am better at both because I do the other. I am a better journalist because I'm a mom. It's made me more empathetic. I'm much quicker to cry on camera. And I'm a better mom at home because I'm very fulfilled in my day-to-day.
You got that, RK? I'm going to be asking you in 10 years, how do you achieve that work-life balance with the toddler at home?
Doesn't exist.
You know who you're not going to ask that question?
And before we go to Q&A, Brooke, when the coverage gets to be a little much, a little somber, a little rough, how do you give yourself space to take a break, mental break, when you need one?
Well, one way that I try to separate myself from, you know, the tragedy and trauma that sometimes we're reporting on is I never read the comments on our social posts.
Oh, yeah, never do that.
Teach me.
Discipline.
I also, you know, I think a lot of people in our field and other fields working late hours, working on the weekends, you know, always being on is some kind of badge of honor. Once I'm done for the day, if it's 5 o'clock, if it's 6, I'm closing up shop. You know, and that does help. And, you know, I read a ton. I'm always with a book. It's my escape. I've probably read like 24, you know, lesbian romance fiction books in the past 3 months. And it's like just a lovely escape from the, you know, the day-to-day of our coverage. But our team, we also have a great team dynamic where we help each other. You know, I have 2 staff reporters, and when one has really been saddled with heavy coverage, the other steps up and will take on some of the heavier coverage, and the other one could focus on finding stories of queer excellence. You know, so we also try to mix our stories up so it's not all tragedy and trauma all the time.
Thank you.
That's good leadership.
So we're going to go to Q&A, and I'm going to change some things up because my legs are falling asleep, and I'm going to come and play Oprah.
Go ahead, Donahue.
Yeah, Oprah, Donahue.
My mother's texting me.
Okay. Oh, your mom's? Hi, Mom. Is she watching?
She hopes we had a good panel.
Oh. Okay. So remember the rules apply. Questions, no statements. I'll be rude interrupting you, and keep them short. And I saw your hand first, even in the darkness. Here you go. I'm holding the mic though. Okay.
Hi, Jacqueline Delcamp. I am with JP Morgan. My question is more about creating stories for impact. We're thinking a lot about creating change within corporations, and obviously you guys are managing a lot of data, facts, and I'm just curious how you approach things to be able to impart as much change as possible while still remaining authentic or true to the facts that exist.
Thank you.
So,
is that direct?
I had trouble hearing the question.
Oh, you did?
To be honest with you.
Try it again.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
that makes more sense because now I can hear myself. Okay, so my question is more about how do you think about creating stories based on facts that still impart as much change as possible? You know, we're change agents at our firms and thinking about how to do that, and a lot of it's based on data. And so I'm just curious how you kind of approach that to impart that change.
It's all character driven. For me is talking to people and really bringing out the emotion in the story. And if somebody can connect with somebody that they see on television and see something in a different light, and really it's, you know, the bravery is the people who we're interviewing and who are saying yes, and they're the ones who, their authenticity is what shines through and I believe really creates the change.
And I absolutely agree with, you know, character-driven stories. One thing that I mentioned it earlier, that I love about being the LGBTQ section of NBC News is that we are reporting. We're not just, you know, reporting for the choir. We have a massive audience of general news readers, And part of that is we have to make sure all of our stories are accessible. So, whether you are a queer 25-year-old living in Brooklyn or a 70-year-old cisgender straight man living in Arkansas, we want you to be able to, read our stories and feel like you understand everything. So accessibility is part of it. And another great thing about NBC News Digital, and I'm sure all of NBC News, is we're not chasing clicks. So we get to invest time in stories that may not get millions of page views, but they're high impact.
Okay, we've got a question here, there, and I saw there and there. And I'm going to try to get to everybody in the 0 minutes that we have. Go ahead.
If anybody needs to.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Visa. This one's for Wilson. So, like you mentioned, you played Enrique in My So-Called Life. So, as your chair in Gleason, what would you have done for him for that character with your chair now?
Thank you.
Well, I'll say this. Something I left out earlier, which I think Ricky would have benefited from, is, GLSEN is the central hub for all of the GSAs around the country, in different schools and states around the country. And GSAs used to be called Gay Straight Alliances, and they are now Gender and Sexual Orientation Alliances. And they're student-led groups. And they have a teacher facilitator, supportive teacher, who's a facilitator for the group. And for me in high school, that was literally what saved my life, was having my 4 best friends and myself who were all out to each other. And Ricky didn't have a group of queer friends who he could relate to, commiserate with, see himself in. And so I would have encouraged Ricky to, after he came out, to start a GSA at his school with Mr. Kotimsky as his sponsor. So it makes a huge difference in our students' education, in their ability to fulfill their potential, when they have support from other students and a place where they can go and feel safe and impart with each other their experiences.
Thank you. Question here.
Yes, Evelyn Thompson with Deloitte. So this is to the, Evelyn Thompson with Deloitte. So this is to the NBC folks on the panel. How would you respond to the criticism that the manner in which you report on trans issues consistently and materially harms trans people?
So you're asking, you're saying NBC consistently gets criticized for our reporting on trans people?
I'm saying this question is a criticism. You do consistently harm trans people in the way you cover our topics.
How so? Can you give a specific? Just one specific, since it sounds like you have many.
So, a trans person, if a trans person is even on air, is portrayed as an activist, where the other side of the reasonable debate consists of a concerned parent talking about leave the kids alone. One side has science and the other side has CPAC, and they're presented with equal weight all the time. It's consistent, it's pervasive. I'm a little bit shocked that you're not in touch with that criticism.
So I'm not, and I will disagree with your assessment. I actually think that NBC Out has a trans reporter that is doing the best reporting on trans issues in the country. Their name is Joe Yerkeba. And we are constantly, we don't just report on trans issues, during Pride Month. We are reporting on queer issues across the spectrum, including trans issues, quite literally every day. We don't do the, 2 sides of an issue and give those sides, equal time, that, depending on what the issue is, of course. We pride ourselves on fact-based reporting, and we get a lot of issue from it. Now, from both sides of the spectrum. So we, there are some lawmakers who will not talk to my staff reporters because they have pronouns in their bios. They are, my reporters get, terrible hate mail because they're reporting on LGBTQ issues. We do get some criticism from queer advocates, but I've learned that there's no way when your mission is fair and fact-based reporting, there is no way you are going to make everybody happy. And we have to tune out a lot of the angry voices, and there are a lot from across the political spectrum, and we have to focus on our work and fact-based, fair reporting, and I stand by our reporting. And I think that we've done an excellent job with that mission.
I know, Wilson, did you? No, oh, okay. And
I was looking for you, I was like, where'd he go?
No, I was just down here, trying not to block the view. But I will also say, if you watch the Saturday show and Sunday show with Jonathan Capehart at 9 a.m. Eastern, when we cover trans issues or even have a trans person on our show, there is no other side, because there is no other side. Just so you know. Question here.
Yes. Hello, Brad Baumel, JP Morgan Chase. First, I wanted to just thank you, Jonathan, and RK and the panel for a truly phenomenal session. My question is for Wilson. You already asked corporates for sponsorship for GLSEN, which was awesome. But can you tell us a little bit about your Rise Up campaign? Because I think this audience and their companies and them individually could do a lot for Rise Up, and they haven't heard it yet.
Oh, thank you. Yes, our Rise Up campaign, actually I can talk about this, the Rise Up campaign in terms of this. Our Respect Awards in Los Angeles, let me rewind. We are with a new executive director, with a new board chair, a new board vice chair, we are reimagining our events. I think it's pretty fair to say we're, as a movement, as a community, we're tired of the chicken dinners. They're lovely. I've gone to many. I've received beautiful crystal statues. But I think what our community is asking for now, especially this younger generation, is a more inclusive, reachable, what's the word I'm looking for? Participatory events, that there's more than just speeches from a podium and an honoree, which is great. We will have an honoree, but really, like, how can we engage the audience, inspire them to rise up in their own communities for LGBTQ+ students? So in Los Angeles on October 28th, we are having our first Rise Up LA event at I always say it wrong. Nui House? Noya House. Thank you. See, I said it wrong again. And we'll be announcing a concert by a very special guest who I can't announce yet, but I'm very excited about it, who will be performing. And we'll be hearing directly from our students from across the state who have been affected by GLSEN's work and across the country who have been affected by these anti-LGBTQ laws. So it's really an opportunity for us to inform the community, but also how do we engage students? How do we engage their parents? How do we get them active in their own empowerment? And how do we get the communities and corporate partners to support these students at these events so that we can continue to do the kind of research, the kind of outreach that we do, not just on the local level. GLSEN does work with state governments, with the federal government when these explosion of anti-LGBTQ laws started to come about right here in the gorgeous state of Florida. We worked directly with the Biden administration with their response. We worked hand in hand with them. So we have the ear of very important and powerful people, but we need corporate sponsorship and sponsorship in general in order to get that work done. And so one of our first steps is the Rise Up LA event in Los Angeles on October 28th.
Okay, we've got, great. We've got less than 2 minutes. And I'm going to squeeze in 2 real quick questions. Here's the first one.
Hello, I'm Sterling Edward, former Navy lawyer working for the federal government, Department of Veterans Affairs. I listen to all kinds of news to be educated, and I heard alphabet mafia, and I've heard anti-LGBT legislation. I think there's got to be a stronger response. What can we say? Like, it's not really, I would call it, do you think we could use better language like bi, homo, hate laws instead of anti-LGBTQ+? Because they call, using those letters, they refer to it as the alphabet mafia. And I just want to get your feedback on, can't we be a little stronger in our resistance?
I mean, they're always going to mock whatever term we come up with, right? I'm tired of responding and being reactive to the right's ridiculousness, right? The fact is that they're anti-LGBTQ laws. We are the LGBTQ plus community. If they can't handle 5 letters, is it 4 out of 5 letters?
5 letters.
5. You know, I don't know how we expect them to handle any form of government.
5 or more.
And running it. So, you know, that is the least, honestly, you know, I appreciate your question, but is the least of our worries that they call us the alphabet mafia. I mean, I'm more concerned with the fact that students aren't feeling safe in their own schools, where they're supposed to be feeling the safest and are being attacked by the very people who claim to be thinking of their best interests and are doing nothing but destroying the ability of our kids to be educated. So, I'm sorry.
And, well,
I would just say,
go ahead, Lindsay, and then the last question.
Criticism is crucial to the media. I mean, we are not speaking in a vacuum. And if I have a newscast and I don't have a tweet from somebody who doesn't have something to say about one guest that I had or something that was reported on, I'm disappointed. So to both of these comments, this is crucial. You guys need to be letting us know that this exists. Now, at the same time, I will also say, I just wanted to address your question because I didn't have a chance to earlier. I mean, I've never had a situation in which I've had a parent come on to say how trans students are harming their I mean, without any kind of pushback, and I haven't even in a show that I've anchored had a guest like that. But I understand that there's some media that you're watching in which that is an interview that you hear, and it is harmful. But the media is a service, and so it is crucial at the same time that we are criticized, and it has to be a two-way street. There has to be back and forth. And so if you feel like anti-LGBTQ is harmful language in newscasts and that it should be more forceful, and to hear anti-gay, I mean, you should be contacting local journalists, national journalists, telling us here. It should be an open conversation about the language that's being used, and these aren't decisions that should be made in C-suites and silos.
We are way over time. Final question.
Hi, Andy Grimm, Crow LLP. So just a common counterpoint that I hear to, you know, in regards to like LGBT issues nowadays is like, they'll often deflect. They'll talk about how like, you know, issues nowadays, they seem frivolous compared to what they were prior, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago as well. What's all of y'all's counterpoint to like, you know, like, oh, is the fight, you know, now that we have marriage equality now, like, what is y'all response to like continuing the fight and keeping it going?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I couldn't quite get it.
I thought it was me.
Oh, sorry, yeah, so it's just for the NBC folk particularly. Just like a common like right-wing counterpoint is that like, you know, we've come so far, it's like, you know, like you already have what you want, like what more do you want? What is y'all's counterpoint to that?
Roe was just overturned.
And I also think perhaps if you are a straight white, a gay white cisgender male couple, and you were able to get married, you think, I don't know, maybe you think your issues are done, but we have a big tent community, the LGBTQ community, and there are a lot of folks within that community who do not feel like that they have full equality. So, you know, I would push back on that. And if you think, you know, and there are some people in the LGB community that want to separate the T and the Q. And there's certainly There's certainly people on the right that would like to see that, and we're seeing those efforts, divide and conquer. So I think to say that our issues are done, we have what we want, and any more is, a disservice or greedy is a dangerous way to look at it.
I think what we want more of is the ability to walk down the street without fearing for our lives, the ability to vogue at a gas station without being killed, the ability of being a trans person without, fearing not being able to get a job or, take care of my family. I want our LGBTQ plus students to be able to live up to their potential, which is great. This is a generation that if we give them license to be everything that they can possibly be, they will literally change this country. And they're not doing it alone, they're doing it with their straight ally counterparts, right? This generation gets it. The problem is that these older generations are afraid of them. And so fear is dictating every decision that they're making. And all of these laws, these anti-LGBTQ laws, are based on a fear that is ridiculous, just to put a fine point on it. So there's so much more that we need. Just the ability to stay alive being at the very top of the list.
I want to get on this one. I would say very simply that it is the sole and exclusive right of the people who are suffering most in our society to say when it's enough.
Yeah, and I'm going to say one last thing. That's what I'm saying. At GLSEN, when we think about the work that we want to do, we think about a Black trans teenage girl, because we know if we can make the student experience for her better, we make it better for every other student at that school.
A panel is going really well when you are 6 minutes over time. Wilson Cruz, Lindsay Reiser, Jarrett Lucas, Brooks Appelset, thank you.
Thank you, John.
All so much for a great discussion. And before you leave, one programming note. On October 19th, you can hear from and engage with top leaders across NBCU Universal and beyond when NBCU Academy hosts its 4th Next Level Summit focused on knowing your audience. Whether you work in news, entertainment, public relations, brand marketing, or just about any career, knowing your audience is critical to your success. This free virtual event will help you gain valuable insights and advice. Head to nbcuacademy.com to register. Again, thank you very much to Out and Equal for having us. Have a great rest of the conference.